Do you feel guilty in your parenting? Your children cry and then you blame yourself. You think that you might be doing something wrong. Your children don't like your no. And then you are questioning, I wonder if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm too strict, if I'm too permissive, if I'm too harsh, if I'm not harsh enough, or if I'm not strong enough. You question yourself when your children tell you things like, you're a bad parent, you're such a bad mommy, or you love my brother more. If that is you, and if you feel guilty in your parenting, this podcast episode is for you because I'm going to share with you 5 simple steps that has helped me as a parent and that has helped so many of my coaching clients work through that guilt. So guilt is not what drives our parenting decisions. So you are able to enjoy your parenting with peace, with connection, with empathy and understanding. Hello, my name is Marcela Collier. I am your host of the Parenting with Understanding podcast. I'm a certified parenting coach and founder of HIC Parenting Education Agency. My team of coaches and I are on the mission to help parents, and we have helped 14,151 parents bring peace to their parenting and raise emotionally healthy children. If one of the things we work on with our clients is the topic of guilt, because when we drown in guilt, when we allow guilt to make choices for us or to drive our parenting, we cannot parent from peace. We cannot parent from connection, and our main mission is to bring peace to you. Now, before we move forward, I want to tell you that if you feel guilty as a parent, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's not because you are a bad parent, because parent guilt, mom guilt, dad guilt, that's that's a common like across all parents. All parents feel that mom guilt. One example of that, the other day I was watching the Kardashians. I don't watch that show regularly on my own, but I do watch it because sometimes I take little clips to stitch on my social media. And then I saw a clip of Courtney, the older sister, talking to her hairstylists and telling her about all the things that she wished she could do with the kids and the trips she wished she could do with the kids, and that she feels so guilty because she has to work and she cannot do all those fun things, and then that she feels that she's not doing enough. And then I was thinking, wow, like if Courtney, who has the money, the possibility, the support, the nannies, feels mom guilt for not doing enough, that just lets me know that that's a very, very common feeling that we all as parents experience. So if you experience mom guilt, dad guilt, parent guilt, you are not alone. Yes, this happens to us regardless of our socio-economical background, level of education, even level of support. If you are a parent, you feel guilt one day. Now, the step number 1 is to recognize that guilt. If you want to live with a lot more peace, is to recognize the message that that guilt is telling you. Because there could be a disempowering message or there could be an empowering message. Let me give you an example of both. I was talking to a parent this weekend. I went to a friend's birthday party and I met this beautiful mom. She's a mom of 3 kids. The 2 older ones are neurotypical and the younger one, the youngest one, is autistic. And then the autistic kid has a lot of support needs. So she takes a lot of her time is her meeting the younger one, the youngest needs. She told me that she feels so guilty every time the older ones tell her, hey, you take a lot of your time to take care for my brother, and that's robbing the time that you should be with us. And then I remember her telling me, I just feel so guilty. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel that they don't see me. I don't feel seen. I don't feel value. And then what I do is that I just tell them all the things that I do for them. And then I tell them about my situation. Like, look, like your brother does need all this help. But then what happens here? Her story, meaning the meaning that she's attaching to her feeling of guilt, is I am not enough. And because I'm not enough, I need to prove to my child, to my children, that I am enough with, look all the things I do for you. Don't you say, do you say that I don't do enough? But look, I do this, I do that, I take you here, I take you there. So when we are in that headspace of justifying our position based on the guilt that we feel, so we don't feel so guilty, then it robs us of the opportunity of seeing our children. Her children were sending her a very clear message, and the message was, we need quality time. And is it really true that they believe that she's not enough for them, or she should do more? Possibly that's not their belief. Maybe their belief is just like, I need connection. I need connection. When I talked to her about it, she said, oh, that makes so much sense. Because instead of me like asking them more questions about, okay, so when you say that you need more time, when do you think we can have that time? Or how can we have that time while I take care of your brother? Instead of me thinking about them, I get very stuck on proving them that I am enough. So that's how guilt could work from one side and the other. When we attach a meaning to guilt, like when we attach a meaning to guilt, if I feel guilty, that means I'm a bad parent. Or if I feel guilty, the other side could be, that means that there is a little alarm going off here and I need to find out why my children are saying this. So the purpose of guilt. Guilt is a feeling. It's a very human feeling, and all feelings are there to give us a very clear message. And the message that guilt tells us is not that we are bad parents, that we are not enough. The clear message of guilt is there is something off balance. There is something off balance in the relationship that I have with my kids. That does not mean I'm a bad parent. It means that, okay, let's find out what it is and let's try to make it allowed. So step number 1, recognize the guilt and recognize the story beneath the guilt, the meaning that you're attaching to that guilt. If it is an disempowering meaning, how can you attach an empowering meaning instead of a disempowering meaning? Step number 2, to live with a lot more peace, to not allow your guilt to ride your parenting, is to challenge unrealistic expectations. Challenge unrealistic expectations. I was talking to another mom. I talk to a lot of parents every day because I'm a parenting coach. And then this mom has 5 kids. The youngest one is a newborn. She is on the spectrum. Her older one is on the spectrum. And she's going through postpartum depression. And then she feels guilty because she's not herself. It makes sense. It makes sense why she's not herself. She's going through postpartum depression as an autistic person. And I say that boldly because I'm an autistic person. I know what it is to be autistic and to have postpartum depression. You feel your feelings very, very deeply. And postpartum depression, wow, like to me, it felt like I was at the end of my last rope. Like I felt like I was about to check out of this world. That's how bad it felt. Does not mean that she feels that deep in her depression, but it makes sense why she says, I don't feel myself. But what happens? She has this expectation of how she used to be before she had the baby. She had this weight that she's putting on herself of, I used to be a lot more easygoing, but I used to be comfortable with going outside. I used to be not bothered by my kids' noises. Now everything is heightened. And even my children talking to me, it feels too much. And I feel so guilty. And this guilt is driven by these really unrealistic, high expectations that she's putting on herself, that her reality now should look like how it used to be before she had the baby. If we talk about this step number 2 of challenging your unrealistic expectation, what is that unrealistic expectation, if there is, that you are placing on yourself that is weighing you down so much, creating so much pressure on you, and that's taking you to feel so much guilt? And how can you soften up that expectation and give that expectation empathy? Is it really feasible for a mother who has postpartum depression? Is it really feasible for her to feel herself? Or is it very expected and normal for her to not feel herself for this time being, for her to be bothered by her kids' noises? It makes sense. Once in coaching, she started seeing herself and her needs, and then having higher sensory needs during this postpartum depression time does not mean that she's a bad mom. She started feeling a lot calmer. So that's step number 2. Step number 3, what's really in your control? That's step number 3. Looking at what can you do and what can you do. Do the things that you can and forgive yourself and forgive the process for the things that you cannot do. So in the first story that I told you about the mom I met at the birthday party, she was trying really hard to do things that were out of her control, such as her son, the one who has all these needs. He has all these needs, and she has to be fully on with him a lot of the times. And at the same time, she's trying really hard to be fully 100% in with the other kids. So is it really in her control of her son having such high support needs? No, it's not in her control. It's really in her control times of the night that he's waking up in the middle of the night. It's not in her control. So what can she control? So my question for you is, what can you control? And how can you focus on basically doing the things that you can and forgiving yourself for the things that you cannot do? So this mom, she cannot control her youngest one from having a lot of support needs. So she has more time to be with the other kids. But given the circumstances, what can she control? I mean, if she were one of our clients, I didn't have the opportunity to talk that deep with her. But if she were one of our clients, we would look at, with the material that we have, with the current circumstances, how can we make things a little bit smoother for this family? Maybe the older ones could be a little more involved with the youngest one, meeting the youngest one, or helping the mom, even though it's not their responsibility to raise them. But maybe they would feel included if they are included. If they are included while the mom maybe is getting the youngest one ready for bed, maybe she could invite the other ones in, like, tell me about your day while I put your brother's pajamas on. That's what I'm trying to say, for them to be more involved. Not necessarily that they're going to have the responsibility I have, because that's not the idea. So focus on the things that you can control. Step number 4. Step number 4. It is about seeing your guilt as just a feeling that comes and goes. Why is this important? Because that guilt comes to give us a message. And once we receive that message, for us to thank guilt and say, okay, I don't need you any longer, I can move on. And that will allow us to not drown in guilt. That happened today. Today, I felt a lot of mom guilt. I was about to record this podcast, and I started recording the podcast when I heard one of my twins banging on the door. I went out there and I said, okay, like I engaged them for a little bit. I said, like, boys, I really need quiet because I need to record this podcast. After the third banging, I said, okay, they're not able to give me that. So I said, okay, boys, let's get ready and let's go to the summer camp. We enrolled them in some summer camp that they could go at any time during the day. They're still in summer break, by the way. So it was hard to get them in the car, but I did not really know what was happening until we were approaching the place. When we were approaching the place, one of my twins started bawling, crying, and he's long enough that he could lean forward and pull my hair. He was pulling my hair. He was crying. He was kicking the back of my seat. It was not safe. It was not safe. So I started feeling guilty. I'm like, okay, is this the right choice? He's in such distress. I wonder what's happening. And then I'm just going to leave him in that distress in the girls and boys club so I could go and record a podcast. What's more important? All these things started dancing in my head. At the same time, I need to record today because my team needs the file for tomorrow. If I don't have it by tomorrow, then we're not going to have a podcast next week and we never miss a podcast episode. No, I cannot do that. So what happened? That guilt started stirring in me. I pulled over. I went to the back, and then I said, Santi, what is really, really happening? Could you please tell me? And then he said, I can't even go to the bathroom. Every time I go there, I hold my pee the entire time for 3 hours. I'm like, what? Why? He said, because their policy or their rule is that I have to ask this stranger adult that I need to go to the bathroom. And I'm so nervous about engaging to this stranger adult. And I said, okay. He's nervous about engaging this stranger adult. He's autistic, so it is extra hard for him to engage a stranger adult. I know I could work towards him feeling comfortable with that stranger adult, so he's not such a stranger for him and he could have a better time. But Marcela, that was the guilt telling Marcela, right now he's in high distress. He's not gonna calm down that easy. And for now, like today, he does not feel that's a safe place. Maybe we can try that next week or tomorrow. So my guilt said, Marcela, that was the message. Marcela, right now, he needs to feel safe. I came back home. We co-regulated for about 30 minutes. We hugged, we cuddled, and then I started preparing him on how to engage this person for tomorrow. I might go in and I might introduce each other so he's a lot more comfortable. So why am I saying all this? Why is this so important? Number 4. It is important because when we see guilt as a feeling that is coming to tell us a little message, we receive the message and we let it go, we are able to make assertive choices. Instead of moving with fear and confusion and like you're beating yourself up, you are moving with assertiveness. And I felt good about myself of making that choice. Tomorrow is another day and we can try again. Number 4 is seeking support. If you feel you're stuck in the cycle of yell and regret, ask for forgiveness, yell and regret, like you are in a cycle that you cannot get out of, that's the sign of like, okay, maybe you need a little bit more than just watching this podcast, more than just listening to another podcast episode or watching a reel, a TikTok, a YouTube short or video, that's the sign, or that was the sign for me to seek professional help, to help me get out of a cycle that I couldn't get out myself. So if you're thinking, yes, that's the real source of my guilt, Marcela. If that's the source of your guilt, let me know in the comments when that it's not about that you yell, is that the cycle of that you yell, but you know that you are going to ask for forgiveness and you might eventually go and yell again, and it's kind of a cycle. I want to help you because I helped 14,151 parents, and I'm confident that I can help you. I created a free class where I teach you the system to break free from reactivity so you can bring peace to your parenting and raise emotionally healthy children with empathy and accountability. To access this workshop, or not workshop, this free class, all you have to do is go to the description of this podcast episode. If you are watching us from YouTube, then open the description box and the link is there. Or go to hicparenting.com and the link is there. Give us your best email so we can send you the class. And that's basically the system that we work with our coaching clients to bring peace to themselves and raise emotionally healthy children. I'm going to show you the story of Bo. She went from feeling a lot of guilt, beating herself up every time that her son had a behavior or a tantrum, to feeling a lot more confident after she implemented these systems that you're going to learn in this free class. She's one of our clients in HIC Parenting, and this is her story.
I could log on and just say thank you so much, because I just noticed like a huge difference in him, in our relationship, and I'm just I need to share these like awesome wins. I actually started being kinder to myself, and I used to be really, really hard on my son as a parent. And so the fact that my brain naturally, not I didn't even try, my brain just went, it's okay, we'll just try again tomorrow. Yeah. I literally forget, and I was like, that's the sign, thinking about what that's nice. That's a sign of healing. Honestly, it was just like I ran and I told my aunt about it, my PI was like, I can't believe my brain just did this. She's like, I'm proud of you. I'm just
So that is Bo, and that could be you. You don't have to drown in guilt. You don't have to end your children's childhood in frustration. Access to the class and start changing your parenting. Okay, so let's recap. Number 1, in the 5 steps to process that guilt so you don't allow that guilt to ride your parenting. Number 1, recognize the guilt and see what's the story that you're telling yourself beneath it. If it is a disempowering story, then change it to an empowered story. Step number 2, challenge unrealistic expectations and see if that guilt is coming from you beating yourself up and putting yourself these really high expectations that nobody can meet, and adjust that. Number 3, focus on what you can control and see the circumstances that you have at the moment and how you can make things a lot easier for you given the circumstances. Step number 4, then it is a matter of seeing guilt as a messenger that comes and goes. It doesn't come to stay. It comes to give you a clear message so you can make an informed decision about yourself and about your children. And number 5 is seeking support, because sometimes when we are stuck in a cycle of guilt and regret and guilt, then we need help. So these are the 5 steps to not allow guilt to ride your parenting, to take control of you. If you enjoyed this podcast episode or any episode of the Parenting with Understanding podcast, would you leave us a positive review? Just open the description. Let us know how this podcast helped you. And I want to remind you that it only takes understanding of yourself and of your children's needs to transform your parenting. I'll see you next time. Ciao.